seeing the increase in numbers of people, we began to really look at a dehumanizing dialogue. We wanted to personalize the stories. We were really just blown away by the diversity of experiences. The goal was really to anchor it from a perspective of those that are experiencing homelessness themselves. We like to say that the people that you meet in the film chose us. They were passionate about sharing their stories to shed this cloak of invisibility. It's a system that is not working and not fault of any individual. People are being pushed out in the most dehumanizing way. The people that we met are extraordinary. We were inspired by their strength and resilience. There was laughter and there was joy in the making of this film.
Welcome to Angel City Culture Quest, where art, social justice, and the environment meet in Los Angeles. I am your host, Melina Paris, and I welcome you to this episode. Hello, culture lovers. This is your host, Melina Paris. For several months, we have been bringing you inspiring guests along with stimulating content about their work. As with anything, there are costs to keep this podcast going. So if you're able, join me in this quest with your support. Think of it as a cultural tip jar to share any amount that you're comfortable with. Or you can make a regular offering with as little as $4 a month. This will contribute to my ability to continue bringing you the great work of these artists, activists, and others, plus the cultural content that you want to hear about. I appreciate you, and I would be honored to have your support. To join, please go to our Patreon link at patreon.com/Angel City Culture Quest. There, you can also see all of our past episodes, get early announcements, and find more perks to come. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Angel City Culture Quest. Today, we are speaking to Pedro Kos, the co-director of Lead Me Home, an Academy Award-nominated documentary short. Lead Me Home is a strikingly filmed chronicle on homelessness, which Pedro and co-director John Shank made over 3 years in 3 major West Coast cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle. In it, viewers are treated to dramatic, all-encompassing aerial views and intimate portraits of its subjects. Hello, Pedro, and welcome.
Hi, Melina. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Before we get started, I want to share some of Pedro's background with you. His latest documentary feature film, Rebel Hearts, which he directed, wrote, and edited, premiered in the U.S. documentary competition at the 2021 Sundance Film Festival and was released worldwide by Discovery Plus in the summer of 2021. Prior to that, he wrote and produced Jahan Najem and Karine Amer's Netflix original documentary, The Great Hack, which premiered at the 2019 Sundance Film Festival and was nominated for a BAFTA award. His feature directorial debut, Bending the Arc, co-directed with Keith Davidson, premiered at the 2017 Sundance Film Festival. Previously, Pedro has edited several award-winning and award-nominated films, including The Square, which earned him an Emmy Award for Best Editing for a Nonfiction Program, among others. Pedro is from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and he received his BA in theater directing from Yale University. Lead Me Home is a co-production of Netflix and Actual Films and produced by Bonnie Cohen, Saren Marshall, and Richard Burge. And I'm happy to announce Lead Me Home will screen at the Warner Grand Theater in San Pedro on March 20th. So Pedro, in Lead Me Home, you and John Shank filmed the daily lives of more than 24 subjects over 3 years. This method allows the viewer to almost be with the subject and have empathy for them. That is largely what makes this film so vital. It's shedding a much-needed light on these individual circumstances. Can you talk about your goal in making this film?
Well, first of all, thank you again, Melina. It's an honor and a pleasure to be speaking with you. John lives in San Francisco. I live in Los Angeles. And Bonnie, who's John's partner in making films, but also in life, I worked with them previously and we became very close friends. And we were speaking about our respective cities and, seeing the increase in numbers of people experiencing homelessness. And John and Bonnie have been all over the world making films. We began to really look deeper and see the increase in numbers, but also an increasing vitriol and a dehumanizing dialogue and debate around the issue of homelessness. And we wanted to actually look to hear the stories and get to know people that are actually experiencing. We seem to be talking a lot about it, but not hearing the actual lived experiences. And we really wanted to set out to do that and hopefully personalize this very, at times, vitriolic debate that is going on. And so in 2017, we set out to dive in and really did a lot of research. We met with organizations, we met with city officials up and down the West Coast, and we were really just blown away by the diversity of experiences and seeing that there is not one cause. So we wanted to really ground it in the humanity. The goal was really to ground it and anchor it from a perspective of those that are experiencing homelessness themselves and of the ones that are working on the front lines. That's the core, that's the anchor. And also kind of giving it a macro sense of scope and how our cities are being transformed and are changing. So that was for us was anchored in the intimate and giving a sense of scale and scope in order to try to look at life and look at our cities from a perspective we've been marginalizing for way too long.
Yeah. You've raised such very important points. The vitriol and then compared with the scale of what's going on and how large this problem has grown. As you noted on the website, each of these people who are living on the street, if not for unfortunate circumstances like addiction, mental illness, sexual abuse, homophobia, healthcare costs, disability, we see they would be living no differently from those who have shelter mere blocks, or as you noted, even just floors away. This is a two-part question. It's noticeable that each of these individuals have remarkable strength. Was there also something that drew you to these specific people? And was there anything notable or surprising to you about any of these subjects or their particular circumstances?
Thank you for this question, Alina. It's interesting and it's funny because with Lead Me Home, we like to say that the people that you get to meet in the film chose us. They chose to share their stories. They chose to be in the film. They are remarkable people and of great strength and generosity because they were passionate about sharing their lives and their stories in order to connect and hopefully shed this cloak of invisibility that is far too pervasive. Getting to the second part of your question, the most surprising thing was the diversity, all walks of life. What people associate with homelessness is struggles with addiction and mental health, but that usually is what follows once you're pushed out into the streets. As you said, the causes can go from medical reasons, for disability, for abuse, discrimination, economic, financial reasons are huge. And so that's what we found. People that, for all sorts of different reasons, get to a point of vulnerability that we can no longer afford to pay the rent. We met families that were experiencing homelessness because one of their children was diagnosed with leukemia and they had to pay for that health care. One of the parents had to quit their job to care for their sick child, and the other parent, in that salary alone, could not afford the rent. There's a scene in Lead Me Home. A young mother who's living out of her car is explaining to the outreach worker that, once she gets a job and she starts earning a certain amount, certain programs, assistance programs, are taken away. And so she's faced with, does she pay for food or pay for rent? And far too many people in this country are faced with similar decisions like that. And for us, it's a realization that it's a system that is broken and not working for all of us and not fault of any individual.
I remember that woman too, and it's very easy to relate to her. And she asked the question, what are you going to do? Are you going to feed your children or are you going to pay the bills? You're going to feed your kid. It's remarkable how the film juxtaposes these folks' stories against what appears to be an abundance of towering real estate developments rising up in these cities. San Pedro is in the midst of a development boom itself. So while homelessness has been a long-time issue, did you find it's common to see increased amounts of unhoused individuals amid prolific development?
We did. I have to give the caveat that I'm not an expert in this issue, so I can talk about what John and I and our team saw and experienced through these 4 years. And yes, we definitely see increased numbers, and the visuals that you see in the film is something that's been a very stark juxtaposition for us. Seeing these gleaming towers, like in downtown LA or where I live in Hollywood, and you look inside and they seem to be half empty. And with such enormous real estate speculation, and they're quite expensive to live in so many of those. And then meeting people like Flora, who works in janitorial services at a clinic in downtown LA and is not earning enough to pay rent, but thankfully she's now in housing. But that economy, it was so striking for us. And it's something, for example, that I'm from Brazil. I'm from Rio de Janeiro. And I grew up seeing that stark gap between the haves and the have-nots. And to begin seeing that here in Los Angeles, in my home, was very jarring. And I have to say, alarming. And it's showing that this is a system that seems to be broken. That is, too many people that have extraordinary potential are being underutilized and are being pushed out unnecessarily, and are being pushed out in the most dehumanizing way out of a system that just seems to be discarding way too many of us. And it's sad, and it was very alarming, but that's why we wanted to ground it in the stories of the people they get to meet, because it's literally, as Eric in the film says, Eric, who is an outreach worker for LA Family Housing, when he's talking to Patty, as he's driving her to a shelter, he says, I'm one paycheck away from being the tent right next to you. And so we realized that razor-thin line is so close to so many of us, and how vulnerable we all are.
If you're just tuning in, today we're speaking with Pedro Kos, co-director of Lead Me Home. Thank you for listening. As listeners may know, San Pedro, which is located in the southernmost part of LA, has had a large number of unhoused individuals, but only some of them have been provided temporary housing. In 2020, during the previous homeless count, there were 66,436 homeless people recorded in Los Angeles and LA County, and 2,257 were living in Council District 15, which is this harbor area. The 2022 numbers are going to be released in June. What I wanted to note is your film's website lists resources under its ACT tab to help unhoused people. These organizations are ones that your film team worked with during the filming of the documentary. They include 211, HUD Exchange, Community Solutions, and Lava May. And in LA specifically, you have the Center in Hollywood, Chrysalis, and LA Family Housing. People can also see other organizations for San Francisco and Seattle there too. Now, the people we met in your film are so special. People have asked for updates on them, and you've answered by providing updates on your website. It's really wonderful and encouraging to see these stories and the successes that they've achieved. Can you please tell us about a couple of these individuals?
Of course, we've been privileged to develop great close relationships to many of the people that you get to see in the film. So, for example, Rashima White, who is Lewis's friend, you see her helping to clean Merritt Lake Park in Oakland. She has her own apartment now and is working for an organization in the Bay Area. And now she herself is helping many people get into a more stable housing, including, I have to add, Lewis, who is her dear friend and is actually how we met her. through Lewis. And Lewis now is in a tiny home. They call it in Oakland, they call it a tough shed, but is sort of a temporary housing. And he's working on trying to get into more stable housing with the help of Roro. And that's the beauty of it. You see is sort of the community. And so many people that have experienced homelessness are now working really, really hard to help their fellow neighbors get into stable housing as well. Eric, who is an outreach worker who you see in the film, he's the one that says, I'm one paycheck away from being the tenant. He himself experienced homelessness decades ago, and he's been with LA Family Housing for over 20 years. And he's an extraordinary human being, one of the most wise and gifted men I've ever met in my life. People talk about Marvel superheroes. Eric is a superhero. And he continues to work every day to try to help people who are on the street and kind of bring some dignity into people's lives again. So that's a little update. The other thing I just want to remark is the film tackles a heavy subject. The people that we met are wonderful and extraordinary, and there was a lot of joy as well in making Lead Me Home, to be able to spend time with them and connect with them and just share stories and share meals. And there was laughter and there was joy in the making of this film because we were inspired by their strength and by their incredible resilience and spirit. So it was really a great privilege.
You've just said so many wonderful things, and it's heartwarming to hear that it was a positive experience. It's wonderful news to hear that Lewis has housing. It's a small community of support. As you said, that's exactly what I was thinking. And this community of support just so happens to stretch across 3 states. That's a beauty in itself.
Exactly. And the mom that you meet who's pregnant, she's now also in her apartment with her kids and also is working for our organization and is doing really well. She's extraordinary and really was such a joy to be with and so inspiring. And she's helping others now too.
She's a very strong woman. Lead Me Home Mom, which is how she's referred to on the Lead Me Home Instagram page. The way she handled the whole situation and made it all right for her children. It's a wonderful story. We could go on forever, but there's also Ronnie Futuristic, the dancer.
Yes.
He's great. And choreographer, I should say. And I understand he has housing now as well and is getting ready to do some work with some new R&B artists as well.
Yeah, he is getting ready to start choreographing again, and he was, if I'm not mistaken, cast in a show, dancing. So he's living in downtown LA and really kind of trying to get back at it. He was actually able to get into housing via Project Room Key, which was a big program that really kind of began during the pandemic, and he was able to get his place via that. And so now is working on getting back into the swing of things. Again, an extraordinary artist and dancer. He has incredible gifts, and he's actually been recognized on the street from the film.
Oh, yeah, he's a very recognizable person. So amid all this, there is good news, and there is hope. So Pedro, can you tell us where to find you?
Yeah, you can connect with us via the website, leadmehomefilm.com. And as you said, we have many different ways where audiences can engage. There are the updates on the people that you get to meet in the film. There's ways that you can learn more about the history and current situation of homelessness around the country. And there's also ways that you can engage and act. As you said, the different organizations that are listed there are organizations we worked with during the production of the film. And there are many more, and we're actually continuing to add. And there's 211, if you are experiencing homelessness yourself, that is a lot of the times first point of entry, calling that number for guidance and where to find assistance. We want to continue to engage and help and hopefully be a conduit to help people act and connect more people and kind of seeing this in a different way.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that about 211. You have created a proactive site, and thank you for that as well. And I want to let people know we will have a link in our show notes, so go there. And it is also on Netflix if you can't make it to the Warner Grand Theater. Pedro Kos, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Melina. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, Please rate and recommend on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.